In Afghanistan, we have a surge by President Obama, and all of a sudden there's these leaks. They go to WikiLeaks, 92,000
documents.
right? And they tell us some stories we did not know. A lot of it we kind of knew, but it fleshes out the details. For example, we knew the Pakistani government was of mixed help to us. We knew that they were working with the Taliban at different times, certainly over the stretch of the course of these documents, and they are, so you know, from the beginning of 2004 to the end of 2009. So most of it is during the Bush times, right? So, but you get a fuller sense here, and you see, oh, here's this specific General Gül, and he comes in and he's like, all right, Taliban, where would you like to bomb? All right, now you hit the Americans over here and you hit the Americans over there. Now, and that's our guys documenting that, right? If it turns out they're right, which we suspect they are, wow, that guy's former secret intelligence of Pakistan claims he's not working with them anymore, but apparently we've got more evidence that he is. And if you got somebody that high up in the Pakistani government looking to kill our troops, coordinating and planning and attacking our troops over and over again, and he's just one of the guys that you see in the documents, well, that's bad news, man. And that's, you know, because Hillary Clinton went over there and said, all right, we're going to give new aid to Pakistan, $7.5 billion over the next 5 years. So, of course, one of the questions that arises is, why are we doing that with Pakistan? I'll get back to that in a second, okay? Now, the other revelations here in these WikiLeaks documents that we see is that we've killed a lot more innocent civilians than we're letting on. Internally in their reports, the armed forces are, we knew that civilians had been killed there. In one instance, for example, we had 6 or 7 other casualties other than the terrorist, the Al-Qaeda guy we were targeting, al-Libi. And by the way, they were all children, right? And sometimes we'll say something completely different in the press than what we actually know behind the scenes. For example, it turns out the Afghans have heat-seeking missiles. Now, we've pretended all along that they didn't. And say, oh, small arms fire that brought down that helicopter, et cetera. It turns out, no, they've got heat-seeking missiles, and that's how they took down at least one of our helicopters. Now, people say, well, they miss most of the time. Of course, they miss most of the time. They miss most of the time while fighting the Russians. That's not the point. The point is, do they have them or don't they? If they have them, then they have much bigger capabilities, and we're in more trouble in terms of the fight against them. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have the fight, but you shouldn't at least know and the American public should know that information. And the list goes on and on. Of course, the overall picture you get is that the fight against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and in Pakistan is not going nearly as well as official statements would have us believe. Again, not overwhelmingly surprised by that, but interesting to see the details and see how things are a lot more screwed up than we thought. So, now, let's talk about the implications. One, politics. Does this lead you to go, oh, damn it, Obama screwed up? You see that with the surge. Well, look, I don't think Obama should have done the surge. So, I suppose politically I would be driven towards that conclusion. Except, and some of the stuff is in 2009 when he was in charge is damning. But most of the documents are before Obama even comes into office. So obviously you can't blame him for that. But more importantly, Obama, having seen this, changes direction. So that $7.5 billion going towards Pakistan, for example, that's not for hosing us earlier. That's for changing their policy. And so you get an incomplete picture with these documents, because I've been following it in our policies towards Pakistan very closely in the press, and we're getting better at it. Okay, that doesn't mean we're good at it at this point. It doesn't mean we should trust them completely, not anywhere near that. It doesn't mean that some of their secret intelligence is not working with the Taliban. But it does mean that we figured out incentives and disincentives a little bit better than the Bush administration used to do, than you see in those documents. We're not blind to those, right, to those concerns. So does that mean Pakistan should get the money? Well, look, that's a really complicated question, and you really can't answer that without knowing all that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and General Petraeus, et cetera, know, because, they've allowed a lot more drone strikes inside Pakistan now. They seem to be going after their own Taliban a lot more enthusiastically, if you will. The democratic government has made a big difference. Now, if you're going to, on the politics of it, look for blame anywhere, Oh, I mean, the documents from the Bush era are disastrous. First of all, they're giving away money like crazy to Musharraf, the dictator, and then their own intelligence, our own intelligence, turns around and tells us, oh, no, 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 he's got everybody and their brother working to help fight us in Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Now, look, that's an oversimplification, but there are so many different members of what they call the ISI, the intelligence group for Pakistan, working against us that you think, what, are you crazy? Why don't you pressure them? Why don't you, stop giving them money? It's an absolute disaster. See, at least Obama changed that. Look, like I said, I want to withdraw from Afghanistan. I disagree with Obama's policies overall. But when you look at these documents, you think, well, at least he made some of the right changes. And that's what we were telling you when those changes were taking place early on in Obama's administration. But that brings you to point number two. Okay, despite those changes, can our policy in Afghanistan work? And again, you look at it and you think, no. Almost every story in there is a story of our naivete, people, but much more importantly, people with different interests than ours. They're not going to do what we want them to do. They're not ever going to do it. It's blaring from the documents. So here, I'll give you first an example of the naivete. Now, this is way early on in 2003, during the Bush era. They're going to give money for an orphanage. And we've got a young lady there who's doing the ribbon cutting ceremony like they would do here in the U.S. And they've got all these different toys, etc., and materials for the kids. And they even got a leather jacket. Somebody wanted to give a leather jacket to whoever's running the orphanage. She gives that to them. They're taking pictures. They give cash money. Somebody does. And I'm thinking, oh, come on. How could you not have seen this? Are you crazy, right? I know what's going to happen to that money. How did they not know what's going to happen? And of course, lo and behold, they go a couple of months later, and there's supposed to be 102 kids in the orphanage. There are only 30, right? And they're like, where did all the toys and the supplies go? And they can't seem to find any of that, right? They come back a year later, there ain't a single kid in that orphanage. Whoever wants to stay. Whoever run. They just took that money and the supplies and bam, got out of there. Of course they were going to do that. You thought they'd just give it to them and just, okay, trust them and it'll go towards the kids? No, but the reason I tell you that story is because it goes to the heart of the problem. Here we're going around, whether it's naively before, even or now smart and crafty as we are, we go to them and go, our priority is democracy. And a guy says, all right, fantastic, yeah, democracy. Now, look, the guy you're dealing with is usually either a national leader or a local leader. He doesn't have much to do with democracy. If you're a local tribal leader in Afghanistan, democracy ain't what got you there, right? You got to dance with the woman who brought you, right? And the woman who brought you was warlording. So you're not going to go to a democracy. So, they come to Gulbuddin, right? And Gulbuddin's like, hey, oh yeah, you want to give me money? So I set up democracy here. I'm on it, Hoss. Okay, check out to Gulbuddin, okay? And so they take the check, and then they don't do what they say they're going to do. To which I say again, say it with me, of course, right? So as you look at all this, you say, how the hell are we ever going to win? They don't have the same interests as we do. They don't have the same priorities as we do. Even the guys that are theoretically on our side are taking the money and running. Oh, the Afghan police and army is a disaster in all these stories. They're so corrupt, they start holding up our convoys. They surround our convoys with 100 guys and they're like, all right, give us ransom. They're like, what do you mean? We're the ones who built this road. We're the Americans. We're the ones that put you in charge. They're like, yeah. Come on, out with the money. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Even if you're the smartest guy in the world and you have the most brilliant counterinsurgency strategy, it's not going to work.